Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for this session, which is around redesigning the business around customer experience. So what we're going to do is we're going to do a 45 minutes panel session, wherein I'll go quickly introduce the panel to all of you. So we're going to be keeping last 15 minutes, and we're going to stop at the 45 minutes so that the audience has a chance to engage with the panel and ask the relevant question. So just to give you a brief introduction of our panel, so we have Mr. Anurag here. For those of you who don't know him, he has been a restaurateur, has built up his business Indigo for the last, I don't know how many years. Huh? 30 years, right? So he's been in the industry for a long, long time, and he has served as a president for National Restaurant Association of India, and I've seen how passionate he was about bringing the entire community together, especially in the COVID time, which I think was one of the hardest time in this country. Then we have Mr. Ajay Aggarwal, who is the global head at Nihilent. So he comes with 20 plus years of experience with successful association with global retailers, e-commerce industry, as an entrepreneur, as an investor, as an advisor, as a board member, and as a practitioner. So I think he has seen it all the spectrum. So we're going to have a lot of questions from him on this particular topic. So currently he heads the global head role at Nihilent and also running India's only retail tech studio, 100 watts with 30 plus CIOs. Then we have Mr. Anupam Bansal. I think Liberty needs no introduction. I think it's been a nostalgia for a lot of us, right? You won't believe, like, it's not just nostalgia, right? So, and I was shocked when I was researching about this. So, the Liberty has more than 150 distributors, over 350 EBOs, and not just that, they're present around 25 countries, including France, Germany, and that was the information I didn't have. So, for an Indian brand to have such a global stage in those days, commendable job. So, we're gonna hear a lot from him in terms of how to build a mass market brand and how to take that mass market brand internationally, right? We have Rohit with us. He is the VP Marketing for Ginesys. Ginesys provides varied solutions from ERP to POS to CRM, loyalty, analytics, and I think they are one of the leaders in the industry when it comes from the tech stack point of view. So we'll have a lot to hear from the technology side, right? Then we have Surender from Tango. Now, these guys are doing very, very, very interesting work wherein, from the behavior data point of view, when we have to go to store, like we are only dependent on our staff to do that work. Now, what they're trying to do is they're trying to bring in the video analytics of store in terms of understanding the consumer experience and trying to collect additional data point in terms of what's happening when our customers are entering these stores. And we have Satyen Momaya. He has been leading Celio sorry. Yeah, so Satyen brings in over 25 years of experience across apparel, retail, telecom, and currently leading the Celio brand for India. And I think we have seen that brand growing at a very, very fast pace, and a lot of digital and technology initiatives the brand has taken. Again, we're going to hear a lot how those things have helped in the space. So what I'm going to do is we're going to divide this panel into three parts. So we're going to ask a very relevant question to Anurag from the F&B space point of view. Then we will move on to Ajay, wherein he will bring his expertise and knowledge, what's happening in the industry in today's date, what are the challenges from the customer experience point of view, and where do we have to go. On his point, we will then move on to our two esteemed retailers, which is Satyen and Anupam, wherein we're going to ask them stories from those points, and then we're going to hear from the technology point of view from Ginesys and Tango, and that's when we will hand over the discussion to the audience. So to kickstart this, Anurag, we have had a lot of interaction, and there's one point, every time I've gone to him discussing about consumer or marketing, this is one thing he's always told me: product is the king. If your product is right, you don't need any marketing, you don't need consumer experience, you don't need anything, as long as your product is the best. Now, the question comes, in the last 2 years, right? Because of COVID, a lot of external parameters came which influenced that particular thought process on the product. So would love to understand from your experience and also restaurant as a community, like what was those changes and how are you looking to, again, the change of behavior wherein things are opening now. So would love to hear your thought process on that particular bit.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Audible? Yeah. Okay. So no, while I do believe that the product is the king, I don't mean to, say that other things don't matter. Eventually, the experience is made out of product plus how it is delivered to you. But if the product is not good, I don't think any amount of, sugar coating it is gonna make it good. You may serve it in the best of the crockery. If the food is not good, it's not good. Now, during the pandemic, I think, given a choice, I would like to erase these years from my calendar. But unfortunately, that's not possible. It virtually wiped off this industry in a very big way. We were one of the worst impacted sectors. And what impacted us was that suddenly dining in, which was the bulwark of F&B trade, became virtually non-existent. Every restaurant became nothing more than a delivery kitchen, that too for a limited period of time. Well, initially, we were shut down for virtually everything. This obviously was a huge challenge for somebody who believed in meeting the consumers, understanding the needs, serving them, and it was more to do with experience. And what we realized was there is nothing we can do to fight the pandemic. We have to accept it with a certain air of inevitability and look at what is available. So every restaurant became a delivery kitchen, and delivery kitchen comes with its own challenges because the pipeline for orders, the entire ecosystem from discovery to delivery is owned by third-party aggregators. And they come at a price. I'm not saying whether the price is good, bad, ugly, whatever. That's a commercial discussion. What happened was suddenly we realized, for example, that few segments within the food service industry were totally redundant. So the technology or no technology, nothing could help them. Things like catering, things like nightclubs, even fine dining restaurants. It's all about experience. You cannot replace a fine dining experience with any amount of packaged food sent home. We did do that because it was something we were compelled to do, nothing out of choice. The only segment which was partially left unaffected was probably the QSR and home delivery segment. And casual dining restaurants were, compelled to get into the delivery business. What we realized was that now the only interface between us and our consumers was that dabba, the packaged food that reached you. There was nothing else. We went around with it, but let me break a myth. There was this whole lot of story about how delivery is saving the industry. Let me make a couple of statements on that. Number one, no amount of delivery can substitute the actual dining in business. Typically for a restaurant, the delivery business is around 10-12%. So obviously with 10-12% business, you can't survive. Number one. Then the other thing we realized was that the biggest component of dining business, which is experience, is totally going out of window. We went ahead, but let me also tell you that the delivery business, while in percentage term looked that it has grown quite a lot, because dining was shut down, the actual numbers were not something very exponential for various reasons. There were people who were reluctant to get delivery into their house during the pandemic, and some people did not want to take a chance with their favorite products, which is best enjoyed on a plate, to be sent home because the temperature matters, everything matters. So going forward, now I'm gonna just switch. This was the background of what we did at that point of time. Today I realize there is the cloud kitchen delivery business, aggregator driven business is here to stay. There is no two ways about it. They have formed a habit. There is a large database, there are a large number of consumers they are sitting with. But there will be two parallel lines of growth. One are the people who want to experience. If there is a birthday, there is we Indians, we love to celebrate every occasion in a restaurant, and that's what kept us going. Kisi ka birthday hai, kisi ka promotion hai, kuch bhi hai, we went to a restaurant. So people who are seeking experience are back at the restaurant, and parallelly, there are people who have the basic need to top their tummy. They will probably continue to consume through the online platforms, and that will continue to grow. As far as technology intervention in the dining business is concerned, some were compelled upon us. For example, the digital menu, very simple thing. Suddenly, because of COVID, we were not allowed to give those, printed menu cards. So everybody brought in those QR codes and people were looking at the menu. But my experience in restaurants was a little different. People will look at that and still call a waiter. They will never order from there. Acha, sun, ye better hai ki wo kharab hai. Can I get something, if you want to customize your orders, can I get a mashed potato instead of French fries? So they would still interact. So while they adopted to the technology of QR code, they were not taking it to the final mile. It was more like, this is a menu card. Instead of reading it on a paper, I'm reading it on my phone. But even bill settlement, you'll be surprised, most of these, when we had those QR codes, you were supposed to settle your bill, but people were not. Get me the physical bill. So to that extent, I think I think the same thing continues. In fact, in most of the restaurants now, you will see slowly menus are back. What is very good that happened during this period, you also realize who are your best consumers who are still seeking you out. And that is where I think CRM and other kind of tools are going to continue playing a role. But let me surmise by saying there is a huge amount of experience that is required in a dining business, which cannot be replaced by technology, but it can be aided by technology to make the consumer experience better. For example, I'm meeting somebody on Tuesday next for a demo on a robot doing the delivery. But I'm very excited about it. It can probably work a lot in a QSR kind of a situation, a food kind of situation. But imagine you are sitting in a restaurant and suddenly a robot rolls in and comes to your table, you have to pick up your plate. You may not enjoy that experience as much because you want to interact with the people. If there is something which you want on that, whether you want a salt or a pepper, you still need to interact. So there are some interesting ways of getting technology into the piece, but the final word is a good product, a good experience is what keeps this going. Thank you.
I love, in spite of everything, your thought process on the product being king is like going stronger and stronger.
But isn't that a reality?
That is true. Yeah. And I agree with you. Like there are times when like me and my wife are sitting right in the evening and getting bored, and the way like we want to have fun, like let's go out and have like a nice dinner just to experience the whole thing. When the same thing can be delivered home, we still want to go out and interact and ensure that we are going through the experience. So Anurag, I'm going to come back to you on certain things. Ajay, we have a lot of questions for you, right? So I'm going to break down the question into two parts, right? We keep on talking about the consumer experience, and you've worked with various retailers across India and abroad. Help us understand, like there are current challenges which we have today, which we have to solve the basic things in terms of improving our consumer experience, and there is a lot of things which we have to do. And once we are able to do it, what does the future looks like in terms of where do we have to go towards that particular point? What exactly is the future and what exactly are the current problems, the short term and long term both?
So, in my journey in retail in the last 27, 28 years is customer service or customer experience is something which was very glamorous word to talk in conferences, but it was not really, practiced, with all respect to the retail brands sitting here. But I think in the last 2.5 years, the brands are now taking it seriously. They are looking at purposeful models of engaging with the customers and delivering a real experience. So I think the first time I've seen the customer experience is becoming important in the to-do list of retail brands. And customer experience is not just seen at what you experience, whether it is a checkout experience, whether it is what you get in the store, but it's like if you divide it into two, the front end and the back end. So in retail, the whole cycle is nothing but customer experience. Retail is basically a trading business, So it's a question of you're buying something and you're giving it to your customer, and how you deliver it, how you make it happen is ultimately the customer experience, So right from the procuring of that material into the brand and ultimately putting it in the customer's basket and collecting money is an overall experience which requires a lot of things to be done. It's not just in the front. There's a lot of effort to be done in the back as well. How you organize your supply chain, how you organize your procurement, what is the quality of products you buy and store, which is associated with the brand image. So everything ultimately reflects in your overall customer experience as a brand. If you look at brands globally, there are a lot of brands from Walmart to Nostrum, they differentiate, they may be selling the same product, but they differentiate the way they do it, you know. So I think the customer experience is a very wide subject, and the first time the brands are now looking at in both in respect of technology, practices, processes, people, and it's all getting addressed slowly. Like one of the grudge I have right in India, I've seen, or not India and everywhere, and I've not understood what is the reason for that. Uh, I have never been to a retail store where all the point of sale terminals are operational at any point of time. I don't know why. And I have not got an answer till now, you know, because you have 30 tills or you have 5 tills, but at least one will never be working, you know. So I don't know why. But so these are small things. There are customers standing in the queue, your tills are not operating. So there's a lot to be done, and it has started happening now, seriously. It will depend the brands, how much money they're willing to spend, how much money they're willing to spend, not just on technology, but also on other aspects of it. And I think supply chain is going to be a very key thing in this, on delivering overall customer experience.
So that's a very interesting thought, because every time we think of consumer experience, we always think about how to improve the experience on the website or in store. But while I was having the discussion in the lounge, there were one thing which we understood, like not just these two aspects, but the entire business unit, from our processes, from our people, everything has to evolve if we, in case we want to improve the consumer experience. So now my next question goes to Satyen, to you, right? Now, this is on the point wherein we are talking about how there are multiple aspects has to change. Can you give us some real life stories? And Anupamji, the same question is going to go to you. From your side, like when you saw these behavior changes and you had to change a lot of things, we want to hear some real life stories of what were the challenges, how do you go about solving it, what are those core elements which you guys worked on for your business? Would be great if you can share that.
Yeah, very rightfully said. I think a lot has changed in the last 24 months. Even before this, even before the pandemic, I think given the digital adaptation which the consumers were doing, a lot of experience, expectations were changing even then. I think one thing in the last 24 months, what probably would have happened in years has actually now happened in about 20, 24 months on the technology adaptation by the consumer, and hence the experience expectations from brands. One thing which actually for me, which we always is the fundamental to delivering excellent consumer experience, and the starting point is actually keeping the consumer in the center. But once you keep the consumer in the center, and actually you have all your team members, all your functions focusing on the consumer, and that consumer obsession culture is the starting point of actually delivering excellent consumer experience. And that remains true whether it was the pre-COVID era or the post-COVID era. And I think building genuine connections, like what my fellow panelists said, I think it's just putting the word for consumer experience for the sake of putting doesn't really help ultimately deliver the experience which you want to. But I think when you build genuine connections with the consumer, it just really helps. So I think the big change which has actually happened is from looking at selling a product to actually trying to fulfill a consumer need. And when you're really working on actually fulfilling a consumer need, this is where we actually said, post-COVID, we are an fashion apparel company. What could we do as a team? Anticipate what the changes would happen. Post-COVID, we saw casualization really coming in. We saw people working from home. Also, even now, there's a lot of hybrid which is happening. How do you really anticipate the changes and give the consumer a new casual look and really surprise the consumer and delight the consumer? I think it just goes back to anticipating the change. The order of the day was to really be quick, agile, and nimble. I think if you get these three within your organization, you are actually setting up better to deliver consumer experience. So I think that's one big point which we experienced, and proud team here at Celio. They've really been able to respond to these changes quickly, and actually our recovery much stronger than we were pre-pandemic. I think as a brand, we've emerged much stronger than we were pre-pandemic. And I think this was one aspect which I thought on consumer experience, anticipating the changes and delighting the consumer. The second one is we put in a digital blueprint. We cannot focus on too many things. So we just put it into two sections. One was what is the backend functions which we would like to work with technology to improve the consumer experience. It may not be consumer facing, but these eventually help deliver better consumer experience. That's one part. The second part was actually on saying what are the consumer facing digital initiatives which you would like to put. So we put up a digital blueprint 4 years back. To give you an example of what were the small things. So example, we expanded our footprint to about 700 doors. We really wanted, earlier the allocation of merchandise was happening with the planners, with a lot of gut and Excel involved. We said, how could we aid using AI? So we used 3-season AI data to actually anticipate the biggest consumer segment for that door and actually what sizes fits well, what consumer are really loving for the brand there, and actually went to AI-based replenishment allocation of merchandise. I think that was one. Second, when we really wanted to look at CRM data, consumers are expecting personalization. How do we really use some of this the India startup ecosystem is very strong. I think we really banged on one of our startups to help us understand AI-based solutions where actually you're sending personal communication to the consumer, which is more relevant to him. And if it's occasion-based, whether it's his birthday, anniversary, and not only that, what is his preference on merchandise? So I think using some of this technology in the back end to actually help deliver better consumer experience.
It's all about utilizing technologies and various models available to understand some of the aspect which human eye won't be able to see because of the scale of the data. Anupamji, I would love to hear from you in terms of when we are talking about, such a widespread of network, like what are the challenges which you faced and what are you looking to do now?
So I will try and give you some more real-time expectations. So, Liberty has been a very, very early adapter of technology. Way back in 2000 when SAP was introduced, Liberty was the first one to take myself.com. So we were early adapters of technology. And we introduced POS to our stores of data collection almost in 2004, 2005. There was huge amount of data, but again, where legacy becomes a great asset, it became a challenge in about 15, 16 to, kind of use it because the kind of investment which goes into the building the technology, that also becomes a threat because the technology was changing so fast. I think COVID really helped us to kind of change because change was becoming very difficult with a network of 500 people, with the amount of infrastructure involved. It was very difficult to change. People was the most difficult challenge to change during the technological change. While it was very easy for the company to invest into the hardware or buy new systems, but to get it implemented was the biggest challenge. I think COVID gave us the energy and willingness of the people to change. I think that was, if you look at it, I think we were creating a huge amount of CRM data during that time. It was not getting used by people. We could talk about fancy technology, but the end mile was delivered by the salesmen or the people there. We could use our CRM data most effectively by our managers during COVID time, and we could change them. They were using that data themselves to do the home deliveries, and the home delivery business really shot up. We were encouraging people to, or the people to go out of home and deliver. They were never interested because of cultural issues. But during COVID time, I think environment changes. And today it becomes reality whereby they're very, I would say, comfortable to go out of the office. Consumer was very difficult, They didn't know what they want. Like I said, till now they ask the salesman, kya acha hai, kya kharab hai. Consumer was not very decisive. I think the big change we saw was consumer became very decisive. They knew what they wanted, and it was very easy to service the customer. We were running a very legacy system, which was doing, polling, data would come, and it was a big challenge. And I think we redid the whole POS because a lot of technological changes happened. I think the team is here somewhere. Shatang is here. He helped us forego all our legacy system. And our system is fully online now. Whatever sales happen, within less than 5 seconds, all our system and MIS gets updated. The ability to use that information and to put that into the real-time use. Our systems are fully integrated. Demand forecasting was a big challenge. We couldn't use old data because of, you said, casualization and various trends change. We wanted to adapt that trend and put back into the manufacturing system as early as possible, which was not possible with a dated data and I would say manual intervention. So with the help of getting that information really timely within seconds and processing that information with another merchandising tool and transmitting it to the factory to deliver the right product which is selling, I think was a big challenge. And we could do that in a span of 60 days. So I think now our demand generation and to the supply to the store happens in as low as 60 days. So I think that's a big achievement in technology which we have experienced. And I think the team has really helped us evolve our system to, I think, deliver that. I think that's a big change which has happened. I think consumer point of view in terms of the store experience, definitely there are a lot of learnings. Earlier where people had to queue up to go to the cash teller, people are used to now taking e-bills, mobile bills, which is definitely a better customer experience. And I think the systems are geared to do so that they can check out from anywhere. We are talking about exposing more merchandise through the POS system at the store, encouraging people to, whatever is not available, sell through the system. I think consumer and people both are getting adaptive. And I think as a company, we are supporting this whole technological change, which is important for today's time. And we are loving the energy which is coming in. And I think the way last few months we have seen a big transition of a lot of learnings coming from COVID time and the consumer wanting to go out and shop. I think a combination of this would do great to the Indian economy and the Indian consumerism.
Thank you so much for sharing. And I think one of the important aspects which you mentioned, and we don't think about it, like whenever we talk about change, we think about, oh, let me change the technology and everything will be solved. But how do you solve the people problem, right? Because people don't want to change. So that, I think, becomes a biggest challenge, for, I think, not just for Liberty. I think that's valid for any industry wherein whenever we have to go through a change, the biggest challenge becomes is how do I change the behavior of our large organization? How do I make them think differently and act differently? So on that aspect, right, and I'm going to come to Rohit. Rohit, so from the technology point of view, like you must have gotten hundreds of requirements and requests from solving different problems. Only problems which were non-existent 2 years back suddenly came up. So from the tech standpoint of view, and I think it raises a also very genuine point, like whenever we from the technology companies think from the feature point of view, but we never connect that dot to the change in people behavior. Like, so how do you, first question is, how do you go about thinking technology advancement which has to happen to meet up with this customer expectation? Second, how do we make it easy for the people of the companies to use that product?
Hi, Rohit here. Thanks for the question. I think lovely points raised by everyone. I think Ginesys, everyone knows we are an ERP and point of sale company to start with. And till maybe 3 years back, our job ended at collecting the data which was related to the customers walking in the store, and that's it, right? And serving it up to the brand. But as we were trying to crystal gaze into the future and understand what else could we do, we understood that the key challenge that is going to come up, forget about COVID, that time COVID had not even started. I think the key challenge that is going to come up is to try to come up with a single view of who your customer is. Eventually, you want to sell it to your customers who are shopping from you on various platforms, researching about you on various platforms. So customers now have the in-store experience, they have the online experience of your web store, they have the chat experience or your customer call center experience. They have your, they're shopping your brand on marketplaces as well. So that delivery experience counts as well. They have, a return experience to talk about. So all these touch points, you should know your customer across all your touch points and have a single identity of that. And how would you do that? It's very, very difficult because each and every system is disparate. It's unique. And believe it or not, every tech company is kind of a lock. it has its own vault of customer data, which is very difficult to open. So as a retailer, as a brand owner, you want this, but how do you get it? It's very difficult because every company is kind of saying that this is our data, or you have put it in here, but you cannot take it out. So eventually it kind of becomes like a lock. So how to open that lock for our customers? So what we went realize is, our innovation should be that we kind of unlock this entire data set across the value chain, from the back end to the point of sale, from the warehouse to the store. And that was the concept of Ginesys 1, where we are trying to bring in all these disparate systems into one umbrella and make the integration so seamless that they don't even feel like, okay, you're moving from one app into another app, and you don't feel like, okay, I'm working across three different apps to complete a, if the order is coming from the web store, it can be fulfilled from POS or from some other system. So those kind of scenarios can be easily accomplished with an unlocked system. And not only unlock it for ourselves, but unlock it for third party also, for other integrations with Xeno or with other third party vendor providers. And I think that is a big win for our customers, because our customers are not, tech companies. They are retail companies, and they want to run the retail business and try to figure out their operations. They don't know how to run, like maybe Liberty is big enough so they can have a big IT team to run SAP and to run a POS and to run a WMS and to run so many other tech platforms. But most of the brands cannot and should not be running so many different tech systems. And that's why I think it's important to kind of simplify.
So the need of the hour is to basically have connected ecosystem, whether it's by the same company or by different companies.
And
doesn't
also
matter.
simplify tech so that it becomes easier to adopt. I think because most of the tech is very difficult to adopt. I think
and he's right, because you think about it, there are so many touch points with the customers. He's coming on chatbots, he's calling us, he's coming to the store, he's coming on e-com app. Now the video consultation have started. Like, there are so many touch points which is happening, and all these problems cannot be solved with one technology. You need like a spectrum of technologies. But the magic here is that of all of these technologies are interconnected, and we are able to create that 360-degree view or single customer view and provide it in a very easy way to the marketers or the brand. I think that's the magic.
Simple hooks where they can go and reconnect with those customers. I think that's the big win for retailers. And obviously, make it as simple for them to roll out this tech. So it should not take years or months. It should be like fast.
Super. So Suren, you guys are doing some very interesting stuff, right? I think I have heard every retailer talking about how they would like to collect more and more information about the consumers which are coming to the store and not shopping, and the window shopping concept. And I know there are a lot of companies who have implemented ways to capture leads of those customers so that we can then reach out to them. And you guys bring a very interesting aspect of video analytics. So can you give us some real life stories in terms of how retailers should think about collecting their data, analyzing their data, and action on that?
And bring that into context as well, right? With customer experience, I think the final touch point, or the best touch point, is when this customer actually walks in to the store, and that's still the very lasting impression for the brand. And as Sir talked about, and everyone talked about, the human element is still very, very important in the shopping experience. And as Tango Eye, we've mapped over 1 million shopping experiences today. And our goal has never been to remove the human element, but rather understand first, map the entire shopping journey to give brands a greater understanding of what's actually happening within their stores. And we think the brands actually know best how to service their customers. So we've had a brand that we work with, as a simple experience that they wanted to create is they wanted to have the store staff just greet the customers as they walk in, right? This was something which they found actually improved their brand persona, their touch point, their customer experience. And when they went from, let's say, 1 store to 10 store, this happened, but 10 to 100, maybe it sort of diluted. And then when they went to about 1,000 stores, it just fizzles out, right? And that's where we come in, and we're able to give that unified view to see across these number of stores, did this actually, the small SOP of bringing a personalized experience to the customer, did that happen, right? And I think brands have a lot of these practices in place that enhance customer experience. If they have the right tools to be able to understand and implement more of these workflows or SOPs, I think they can run this at scale to continue to make that lasting impression for the customers that walk into every store, right?
Like, think about it, like such a simple thing. You enter in the store and somebody comes and greets you. Like, that's it.
That's
Like,
it,
I'm sold. I'm sold to that brand. I'm going to make a
You'll-
purchase
and you'll be
for sure.
And you'll be surprised, right? The bounce rate decreases by
Yeah.
just that small factor that you can add to the personal experience.
So we're going to take 5 more minutes with Mr. Ajay and Anurag to talk about the technology aspect, right? So we heard a lot of things from the problem statement which a retailer has been facing, and we've been hearing about what the technology is being doing to solve that problem. So would love to take your take on these two aspects in terms of what your views on it. Like, how do you think, how do these problem statement and technology marry each other to provide like the end benefit?
So, listening to all my colleagues here, one thing comes to my mind. I think we moved away from customer service to customer experience long ago. And I think now when brands are taking customer experience seriously, I think we are moving into the era of customer engagement. And that's ultimately, that is what we're going to deliver the real experience. In my view, the today supply chain is going to play a very important role. And the other thing is the retail is run by the store managers and the store associates. They are the ones who are actually front-ending the whole experience. And if we are using technology, we need to use technology which can empower them to actually deliver that experience. And that will not happen just by delivering them fancy dashboards and colorful analysis, because they don't understand that. We need to enable technology which is ultimately actually converting those dashboard insights into actions which these guys can take, So help them to take those actions. So I'll give you an example. We were recently approached by one large pizza brand in India, and they had 3 problems. One was that they were having their store managers were spending at least 10 to 12 hours a week in sitting down and calculating what material to order from the warehouse every week, every day, every time the replenishment has to happen. Number 2, they were having shortages very often, especially during, and this problem came during the lockdown, when the home delivery increased. So suddenly there were spikes in the sales, and they were running out of stocks. And number 3 was that there were a lot of wastages. The wastages were increasing, and because the whole supply chain was imbalanced. So we looked at the data, we used our AI engine, and what we did is we first started looking at that this brand needs to move into demand-driven model, where they need to first understand what is the demand going to be, understand the demand drivers, key demand drivers, and based on that you calculate what is the demand, and then you optimize their inventory, what is required in the store, and convert, not just tell them what is required, but also initiate the action of indenting that material and monitor the freshness of the inventory lying in the store, how much is usable, how much is not usable. And based on that, the pricing is controlled, which means if certain inventory, if cheese is going to go out of perishability in the next 2 days, then the price has to be dropped to increase the sale. So we built a solution and which we delivered, and within 3 months, their wastage has come down to 0, their availability has gone up by 10%, and the store managers are now having 10 to 12 hours of extra time to service their customers better.
Yeah.
So
that's also a very different way of looking at just by saving the time of the store managers. They will then invest that additional time in supporting the customers. Anurag, we'd love to hear your thought process.
No, I'll just pick up from the problem statement he came about, from the manager ordering everything. We found a solution to this in a very simple way a few years ago. What we said is, we know the raw materials we use for our kitchens. We put up a par stock level, and we set a reorder level, which was based on a very simple thing: what is the lead time for delivery and what is the average consumption. And now my system generates the PO every evening on what is required in the restaurant. Now, that is, I'm putting it in a very simplistic way. We did not use some major tool. It was a simple MMS program that did it for us. We just had to set the levels right. We did have some problems initially, but then those are expected when you move on to an automated system. We corrected them. I think where I see the use of technology really increasing now is around data.
Yeah.
You know, I don't need to emphasize upon the importance of data in any business today. And I will talk specifically about my trade. My biggest problem is today the ecosystem around the data, especially the delivery data, is totally with outside aggregators. You know, these are what I call, for want of a better word, a digital landlord. So I think this is where I think community needs to come together and create their own ecosystem to make sure that the data of their consumers stays with them. So we at NRI are doing something very soon. Maybe it's not a bad time to just let the people
I
know.
think the teaser has to be given.
Yeah. So NRI is coming up with its own loyalty program, which will be pan-India, covering every restaurant. You can earn the point in Bombay and burn it in Ludhiana for all I care. So this is something which we are doing with a very large company. I'm not at the liberty of naming them, but the beta run of this is going to start in next 3 to 4 weeks. We are that close from there. I think this is the way to go. We cannot discount the fact that digital consumption is going up. You know, there is no denying that digital consumption is going up. The consumer habits have changed. Imagine with your phone, it brings in, like, you know, digital platforms bring you the comfort, the the convenience and choice as well. But the challenge that I see for us is how to keep the data with us, because once you have the data and you know how to use the data effectively, that is where the big change will happen, where the technology will actually marry the actual operators rather than what I call the digital landlords. Thank you.
I love the way that like the entire community is coming together. They're like, we don't care where you're earning points, you can burn it anywhere. And it's such a powerful ecosystem because as a consumer, wherever I go, whichever restaurant I'm consuming products in, I can avail the benefits. So guys, we had decided on a 15-minute discussion with the audience, but we have only 10 minutes left. So I am opening the floor for questions.
Thank you. Thanks to all. I'm Hari. I wanted to know how much time will it take for entrepreneurship to come into the modern retail? Not talking from DNA point of view, which is Kiryana, and the corporation point of view. So will that be the next disruption in the retail?
I don't know what do you mean by that. See, in my view, every retailer is an entrepreneur anyway. So, I don't
Sir,
know what is the question.
if you see technological disruption, you can see every year thousands of entrepreneurs are coming into the technology. Out of that, we see some companies appearing like Infosys. But this is not happening in retail. When will it happen in modern retail? There is an entrepreneurship at the crossroad, which is Kiryana.
Again, I've not understood the question, but what I understand is Kiryana stores would also be in the business because most of the online people would need some last mile delivery. So in case if you look at this new company which is delivering, I think, fruits and vegetables in 10 minutes, I'm sure they're tying up with Kiryanas and getting them tied up into the ecosystem to deliver customer experience better. Instead of they investing in technology, somebody else is investing. Is that what your question is?
No, sir. See, whatever is happening, that is all we are following. We are following when disruption is coming, retailer is following. So I am saying...
as well. So any retailer who wants to become big can think of a disruptive idea and build the ecosystem. Yeah.
But entrepreneurship does not mean that you need to become big. You know, ultimately you are solving a problem and you're solving it well, and you're doing it in a profitable manner. I think, in my view, that is entrepreneurship, nothing else,
Yeah, see, I see it this way right now. The challenges in entrepreneurship in modern retail is that it is more capital intensive.
No,
So entire money is going into the inventory. So if that inventory is, that is where I see this is one point. But I wanted to understand, you might have a foresight, you will have a kind of a forecast, you will know, you are better into the retail. So is that the next disruption in retail?
Yeah, I think one thing which is constant post-COVID is the nimbleness and the agility which is required. I think if the smaller the organization, quicker you are able to respond to the consumer change. It's consumers don't look at now the past heritage, the largeness of the brand. Consumers just want relevance to what their need to get satisfied. Now, if the young entrepreneur is able to solve that need, they don't really actually attach the earlier brand which they had in mind. So they are really open to actually change. They are open to change. They are open to being disloyal to a great extent. But I think what really is the key here is the mindset of a young or any organization which is even smaller in size, of how quickly we are adapting to the change. So I think that's, for me, the take is, if you want to really, you in fact have the younger company has an advantage over larger companies, where you have a lot of bureaucratic systems in place, and the whole inertia to get a cultural change on technology adaptation is much difficult than in a smaller. And if you would have seen the amount of startups we are seeing in the country, in fact, today the young generation prefers to work with a startup company than a very organized company, because he's learning a lot more. I think he just is able to work across a lot of functions. So I think nothing stops an entrepreneur, whatever the size, if it is, to actually fulfill the newer consumers' requirement.
Yeah, we have
Do
next
you
question.
think I was able to answer it?
Yeah. We can take this. I think there are a lot more questions which we have, so we can connect it after the session. Yes, sir.
Hi, my name is Arun. Recently, I saw some data that the consumer spend in non-metro, non-highly urban areas is almost coming at par with metro and urban areas. So with that in context, what I've heard in the last 2 days here is a lot of discussion has been around what retailers are doing in serving the metro urban areas. So my question, it's an open question to the panel. Where do you see retailers going in servicing that non-metro, non-highly urban area where the spend is almost at par? And it's a huge market, but I personally believe it's not being served as it could be.
So I think you have a very relevant question, and a mass brand like ours, we would love to go to as penetrated as possible. And I think in today's time, technology has given a lot of insight. Now, looking at our online data, wherever the consumerism is coming from, if we identify any top towns where the consumption is very high, we are very happy to look at the data and open the store there. So I don't think so it is fair to say that brands are not targeting, I would say, non-metro areas. I think wherever the market is, all brands are very excited to be there. You need a minimum mass to run the store operation there. And I think we see very strongly tier 3 towns as a great potential to grow, and they have a huge disposable income. And I think there is no doubt, I think they're growing even better than metros at times.
So Arun, I have met a lot of retail leaders in the last few weeks, and they have shared their plans for opening new stores, very aggressive plans. And 90% of that will be in the small cities. So it's not that, I think the small cities or non-urban areas are on the main roadmap of the most of the retail brands to expand and grow their footprint.
I mean, the last 2 years has been difficult for retailers for any sort of expansion, but I think the next growth for this country is going to come from the smaller tier 2, tier 3 cities. Like there is no, I come from a very, very, very small town out of UP, and the kind of development which I have seen in last 3 years, I was astonished to see what is happening in these smaller cities. So, yeah.
Hi, my name is Shwetang Shekhar, and when I visit India, and as Anupam ji said, we had opportunity, he gave us opportunity to work with him. In developed countries like US, for customer experience, back in the 90s, we had loyalty, CRM, From there, it moved to GRM, guest relationship management.
I am sorry, I have been told to.
Absolutely,
Yeah, there
no
is
issues.
already a speaker waiting on online. So thank you so much, guys. I'm sorry you can have the question online. I'm sorry for this. Thank you so much, the panelists. Thank you so much for adding value, and thank you so much for listening to us intently. Have a great day, guys.